Okay, this is kind of a long story, but it's important. You have to know this. Let's see. When I was working my way through college, as people used to be able to do, one of the gigs I took was working for the art department as a model for their figure classes. Yeah, that's nude. And perhaps that's reason enough to do it right there. But anyway, I learned a lot from doing that class, and some things I didn't expect to learn. Learned a little about an artist's process. I didn't know that artists warmed up. But the first part of the class was always with the instructor called gesture drawings, where I would do a pose for maybe 5 seconds and then change it, boom, 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 that really fast. And the idea is for them to loosen up, just loosen up their eye, loosen up their hand, let go of their bullshit, just see what's there and pop out a Zen sort of 5-second thing of what's going on, right? And then we go a little bit long, maybe 10 seconds or 15, 20, whatever, right? Go through this process. And then the session would usually have a longer pose, quite often one pose for the rest of the hour and a half, depends on what the session was, right? So the first thing I learned as a model was there are 20-minute poses and there are 20-second poses. And don't confuse those two. You'll be a hurting puppy if you try and do a 20-second pose for a long. Anyway, and every so often, usually every 20 minutes or so, because when you sit in one place and don't move, your circulation goes, So every 20 minutes or so, I get up and put on a robe, go out, get a drink, walk around, get some blood back in my legs and something like that. But it gave me a chance to walk around. The model's desk was over here in the corner, and so to get to the bathroom or the water fountain, I had to go through the classroom. Right? It gave me a chance to sort of look at people's work, and I noticed two things that fascinated me. The first thing was nobody's work looked like anybody else's work. No two things were alike, not even close. And the other thing was, none of them really looked like me. Like you couldn't go, oh, look, who's that? Oh, that's Adam. Not happening. So I thought on that quite a bit, because when you're sitting there holding still for 20 minutes, you might as well think you got nothing else to do. And it was fascinating to me. So the first question is, what is it that accounts for the differences between the artists? Well, there's lots of possibilities, aren't there? Some people are working in pencil, some working in charcoal, some working in oils, some working in watercolors. Right? Some of them were experienced artists, and some of them were taking this class for an art credit so they could graduate. And if you think about it, then people's eyesight might be better or worse. What they see isn't the same as everybody else sees. But also, they're literally, they have a different perspective than everybody else. A guy sitting over here sees a different thing on the dais than the guy sitting over here. Different angle, different point of view, entirely different object, right? That was fascinating. The other question is, why didn't it look very much like me? And here's sort of the arch example of that. Without revealing too much information, perhaps you are aware that some men are circumcised and some are not. And I'm not going to tell you which one I am, unless you get me real drunk. But anyway, there was an artist whose work I noticed, because her portrayal of my penis was the opposite of its actual condition. And I saw it and I thought, what the fuck is going on? And then it dawned on me that she was sketching not what was on the dais, but what she thought was on the dais. She wasn't sketching her perceptions. She was sketching her conceptions. Ooh, this is heavy shit. So, and the Lord agreed. You see that? So, so here's the deal. What I figured out was everything exists according to its own nature, regardless of our perceptions and regardless of our conceptions, right? The me that was me, I looked the way I look, you know. The objective me that was on the dais, that didn't change. But everybody saw a different part of it, communicated a different way, gave it different content. So all their stuff was different, you know. So I worked on campus a lot, and I worked for some artist groups in town. Because I guess good models are hard to find, and if you're any good, that word gets around fast. I made a little bit of change from doing that, and there was one artist in particular, older woman. She had a real like spiky short haircut and twinkly eyes. You know, I dug her. Anyway, she was the one artist in all this time that when I saw her work, I thought, well, first of all, that looks like me. You know, I mean, you could show that to anybody who knows me and they say, oh, I recognize this cat, right? So that was different. And her process was different. And this is what I watched her do. She set her easel up, and she stood there for a while and just looked at me. And then she walked over here and looked at me. And then she walked over there and looked at me. And she did a lot of looking around. And then she went back to her easel and went to work. Boom. So this is a little, I'm reminded of the blind man and the elephant. You know the story, right? The guy who feels the tusk thinks that elephant is like a horn. The guy who feels the tail thinks it's like a snake. The guy thinks it's like a rope. The guy who feels the trunk thinks it's like a snake, and so on, right? And they all argue with each other about what that elephant looks like. But if they had bothered to go to each other's perspectives and say, "Wow, let me come over there and feel it where you are." Oh yeah, that is kind of like a horn, you know. So here's the question: if everything exists according to its own nature, and we perceive it, and we conceive of it, and we all have these different perspectives and different abilities and all this crap, how do we ever get to know the true nature of anything? And I submit that you can't, unless and until you get rid of all the shit that keeps you from seeing the true nature of the thing. And that's understanding your perspective, your perception. What is it you're seeing? Do you know what your perspective is? That is to say, do you know what your bias is in your point of view? Do you know you're looking at it from the West when the whole rest of the world is looking at it from the East, and so on? And the other thing is, what are your cognitive process? What are your assumptions and presumptions? What are the ideas about this thing that you have that keep you from seeing its real nature? Right? This gets to be important shit, because it affects how you act in the world, whether you're able to act adequately and appropriately under any situation. Give you an example, sad example. A call of an armed robbery in progress at a mom and pop store. The cops show up. There's a black guy and a white guy holding a gun on each other. Cops shot the black guy, who was the store owner, and the white guy was the robber. You see what happens? So you have to divest yourself of all that crap, all that a priori bullshit, and take a fresh, new look at something, and from as many perspectives as you can do it, and never be satisfied with your, quick assessment. So that's our first foundational principle. Everything exists according to its own nature, regardless of our perceptions of it or our conceptions of it. And you have to dig that, or you're lost.